Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the AAC Wrap Up Show. Sorry if my voice is a little raspy. Um, this is the Week 5 edition, and we have a little bit of a. I go into a couple of other things other than games because this was a quiet week in the AAC. We only had 3 games played, so I had to try and fill the. Instead of just cutting the episode short, I found some other things that I can talk about. So that's going to be what we fill the rest of the episode. I'm also going to go a little bit more in depth into the games because I have the time to, because, as I said, not as many games to get to. So let's get into these games. First off, we have USF at Cincinnati. USF is 0-4 going into this game, and Cincinnati is 3-1. Cincinnati just coming off of a tough loss against UCF. They're 3-1, and this was supposed to be their bounce back game. USF 0-4 coming in. I mean, they're going into Cincinnati and they're trying to get a win. It would be their first of the season, but it's a tough task. And this game was nothing like we expected it to be. This game, from what we've seen from these two teams, it was the complete opposite. And instead of getting, a scoring battle that like I thought I would get, we got a very good defensive battle. USF has had a pretty good defense, but Cincinnati has played lights out offensively, and I thought I would see more of the same. I thought they would be able to overcome USF's defense, but no. USF's defense shines, and I mean, they put together a performance that they will need to start building off of because it was truly beautiful. USF goes into Cincinnati's own house and beats them 12-3. Um, just an insanely great game by USF. Um, I mean, but this game was all about the defenses. Um, and you look at the stats: four total interceptions in the game, two by Cincinnati, two by USF. The difference maker was Kyle Higbee with a passing touchdown. One of his only 9 completions, which he went for 172 on. He only threw 19 attempts. This USF offense is not an offense that is highly regarded. This offense is actually not really that good. We haven't seen much from them, and we continue not to see much from them. But difference maker, Kyle Higbee in the second quarter, on top of an extra field goal, Kyle Higbee finds Kevin Recker, the running back, who had just 2 targets, made 2 catches for 3 yards, gets a touchdown. Cincinnati continues their slide. USF comes away with a 12-3 win. It was a very impressive win. But again, all eyes were on the defense. Four total interceptions, 4 combined interceptions between the two teams was just a beautiful defensive game if you're into that. So if you have not seen that game, I recommend giving it a look. I don't have any player of the game specifically because it was a hard-nosed defensive game where everybody kind of contributed. I could not pick out a player of the game. Moving on, we have Tulane at Indiana. There's only 11 games in the AAC, so Tulane had an out-of-conference game this week, and they went up into Indiana to play Indiana. Indiana's a team that struggled a little bit record-wise. Coming into this game, they were 1-2, but they've had a pretty tough schedule to this point, and have played each team that they've played to this point, including this week against Tulane, who is ranked 21 going into this game, has been ranked at some point. So Indiana was in for a tough battle, but this team Indiana's got a lot of talent, and they're trying to put it together. And they had an amazing showing in this game. They end up beating Tulane 29-20. Tulane takes their first loss of the season, and that's really going to hurt them in their chase to make it to the playoffs, as they just got ranked at 21, and then they fall to unranked Indiana. Again, Indiana's a great team, so no fault in that, and this loss is going to reflect in the pollings. Um, Indiana cornerback, you look across, and it was just a rough performance for Tulane. Their top 2 receivers, Fernando Thomas and Travion Love, just couldn't make the catches. They went 28 for 11 combined. They just struggled to really do it. They had pretty decent games, but they just couldn't make the catches consistently, and that was ultimately the downfall of the team. You look at the player of the game, and it has to go to Indiana's quarterback, Aaron Gossett. 32 for 52, 362 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So QB rating of 145.4. This guy just had everything going for him. He could not be stopped. No matter what Tulane's defense did, you know, Aaron Gossett was able to just rip through it. It was a beautiful showing. And this kid's finally starting to put it all together. And just a lot of respect for the amazing game he had. He really just, tore apart Tulane's defense. Um, Other news for Tulane, Hector Lee started this game. The usual starter, Alexi Patterson, was getting backup minutes. But Hector Lee got the start this one, and in a comment, Coach Green said that he really, it's two senior running backs, and it's really hard to choose one to start because they both worked hard for it. But he feels that Alexi Patterson deserves it a little bit more. He wanted to give Hector Lee a shot just because he's been riding backup all season. Just give him a shot to see what he's got. But he feels like that going forward, Alexi Patterson will be the starting running back. And when he was questioned about the loss and the close win against Memphis the week before, people were wondering if the cracks are starting to show. Tulane is not one of the more talented teams in the sim, and it looks like they've gotten here just off of good, getting hot and getting good performances from their top guys. And the coach of Tulane, Coach K Green 829, he said that he has 100% complete faith in this team. He doesn't care about the talent. This team is a team that works hard, and this team is a team that grinds for every win on every game, on every play. So he believes that they will bounce back from this, and they're already looking forward to next week against Navy. Then, next game, we have UCF at SMU. Again, the 3 games that were played just happened to be, I forgot to mention this, but the 3 games that were played just happened to be the top 3 teams in the AAC, in my opinion. And this was a beautiful game, UCF SMU. People expected UCF to run away with it, but SMU kind of, they lost. Final score, UCF wins 31-10. But if I'm SMU, I am not that disappointed with this game. SMU really started putting it together. They had 65 pass attempts. And they went really hard on the game. But Tyler Graham had a really good game, 365 yards and a touchdown. You know, for all the struggling that SMU has had, this game, while they lost, they were going up against, in my opinion, the best team in the AAC. And they started to show some things some positive signs, and some signs of life that I think they can build off of. Getting back to our player of the game, though, it has to go to him again. I believe this is the 3rd time in as many shows that he has won player of the game in UCF games. It's running back Steven Herder. Okay, I mean, just a beautiful game. 22 attempts, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then through the air, he was their top receiver, 11 targets, 9 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. That's 3 combined touchdowns, over 200 yards. Just again, it seems like some days nothing can stop this guy. He's getting hot, and he's, the leader. He is the guy that's really taking this team to the next level. He's the reason that this team sits atop the AAC, at least in my opinion. Now, let's get to the rankings. Again, only 3 games, so a lot of things kind of stayed the same. But in 3rd, we have Cincinnati. Cincinnati with a tough loss against USF. But I still believe that they are the number 3 team in the AAC. We'll see going forward. I feel like they did benefit by the fact that they were one of 3 AAC games this week. I feel like if more teams played them, they could have fallen. But since there were only 3 games played, they got the benefit of the doubt, and they stay in the top 3. Number 2, despite the loss, I keep Tulane. Again, another team that benefited. They lost, but they benefited from the fact that not many other teams in the AAC actually played this week. Despite that, they lost to a very good Indiana team. They're still showing their stuff, and they're going to try and bounce back. I believe that they are one of the better teams. And you already know who's going to be number 1. It is UCF. Again, still undefeated. Sorry, not undefeated. They're undefeated in AAC play. They're 4-1 now. They're just, They're a really good team. Steven Herter is really leading that team to greatness. And I mean, they're looking like a really bright team who can make a maybe even make a run for the playoffs if enough things go their way. Now onto my full rankings. We have UCF at 1, 4-1, 2-0. Tulane is at number 2, 3-1, 1-0 in conference. Cincinnati's there at 3 with 3-2 and 0-2. Like I said. Then we get to the rest of it. Temple is at 4, 2-2. They're 1-0 in conference play. Houston. Then East Carolina, the other 2-2 team, they have the fifth best record. They're at number 8, and the reason I have them at number 8 is USF. USF came away with a huge win against Cincinnati this week. SMU played a good game against UCF, and Houston, while they didn't play this week, they still have that win against TAMU, number 6 ranked TAMU, which was a really impressive win. So even though they're 1-3 and 0-1, I have all three, and the other teams are 1-4, 1-1 in conference play. I have them all ranked above East Carolina. East Carolina, I think, it did them no favors that they didn't play this week. SMU and USF certainly had the chance to jump them just because they played, and if East Carolina played, I think they would have also. I think SMU and USF wouldn't have jumped them, and they may have even jumped Houston and Temple. Then going further, Memphis at 0-4, they're 0-1 in conference play. Tulsa at 0-4, they're 0-1 in conference play. And then last place in the AAC, a team that's really trying to figure out, Navy, who's 0-3, and they have their first in-conference game next week against Tulane. So eyes will be on that as they try and bounce back. Eyes are also going to be on Memphis and Tulsa, but I will talk about next week's games a little bit later. For now, I want to just highlight again Steven Herter. He's starting to emerge as a candidate who can, maybe make a run for AAC Player of the Year. He's really turned it up in recent weeks, so I just wanted to say that for a second. Not too much to say about it. But now we're going to get to the AAC Recruiting. This week, we actually did not have any recruits commit to AAC schools, but so instead of talking about that, I'm going to talk about AAC schools that were in on recruits that went to different schools, and after that, I'm going to talk about the top 100 players that AA schools are in on and what to expect going forward. First off, we have Edward Lasco, committed to Purdue, 38% chance, and that was, it was a hard-fought battle between Purdue, Cal, and our own Houston. Houston with 30% odds just couldn't swing the commitment. So going forward, we're hoping Houston can kind of figure out what's going wrong and start getting those recruits to commit. Willie Robinson. Edward Lasco, 5-star quarterback, B overall, C- potential, out of Greensboro, Georgia. Next up, we have Willie Robinson, pocket quarterback, 4-star, C overall, B+ potential. From Westlake, Atlanta, Georgia, committed to Western Michigan University. 60% odds to go there, but Temple was in there with 40% odds. They just couldn't swing him. So, a tough loss for Temple, looking to get their quarterback of the future. They just couldn't swing it. Next up, we have Stephen Gooley, speed archetype running back, 4 stars, C overall, B- potential. From West Springfield, Virginia, he goes to Virginia Tech. He stays close to home. He had that close to home affinity. He stays close to home. 64% to commit, but Navy was in on that too. Navy had some odds there to go in, and they were trying to push for him, and they just couldn't get it. It was a tough one. It was starting to get close, but Navy just didn't have enough. Now we go and we're moving on from the actual commits, and we're looking forward into people that haven't committed yet that AAC teams are reportedly in on. We get to probably the best person in this category, Jeffrey Bethelier, wide receiver possession, 5-star, B overall, C potential. Out of Northwestern, Hyattsville, Maryland, and he's got a close to home affinity. But Maryland, reports came out that Maryland wasn't going all in on this guy, and Tulane came in, and on a strong week they scooped him up. And while Maryland is still in contention, reports are now saying that Tulane is the strong favorite to land Jeffrey Bethelier, which would be, I can't say the name, I'm sorry, but which would be a huge commit since they're going to be losing their top receiver to the draft this year. That's something that Tulane is really looking forward to and really hoping that they can swing. Next up, we have Matthew Wilkes, defensive tackle, pass rusher, 4-star, C overall, C plus potential. From Marshall, he goes to Marshall in Richmond, Virginia, and Eastern Kentucky University is a strong favorite on him, with not many other people pushing. Right now, it's currently looking like East Carolina is going to win it almost entirely, just with no competition. So we're polling, and we're rooting for East Carolina. Matthew Wilkes would be a huge get for that team, just trying to build up that defensive line. Next up, we have quarterback Cesar Chacon, scrambler, 4 stars, C overall, B plus potential. We actually have 2 AAC teams on here. We have Tulsa, who is currently the strong favorite, and reports have said that Temple has reached out. I don't think Temple's pursuing him anymore, and it looks like this is Tulsa's recruit to lose at this point. I mean, I personally am not a bit. Oh, sorry, he's high school Hilldale from Muskogee, Oklahoma. I'm personally not a fan of scramblers, but if Tulsa believes that this is a guy that they can get to work for them, that can come in and get to work for them and just fill a hole, all power to them. I'm really pulling for Tulsa. I'm really rooting, hoping that they can close this out. Next up, we have cornerback Christopher Brown, 4-star, B overall, C potential, Mansfield Summit of Arlington, Texas. Strong favorite for this right now is San Diego State University, but Tulsa reportedly is still in the running, and they're holding on to him. They're fighting, and they're gonna try and win him away from SDSU. Um, if they can pull this one from SDSU, that'll be huge. This is a great cornerback in Tulsa again. Then not having the greatest season, falling behind expectations. Maybe next year pulling in a couple of recruits, or maybe midseason getting hot on the recruiting trail can really start to turn the season around for them. So I'm pulling for them. I'm hoping that whether this guy helps with the team's momentum this year, or he comes in and helps next year, I'm hoping that Tulsa can pull off a big win here against SDSU. Next up, we have Manuel Hernandez, wide receiver, possession wide receiver, 4-star, C overall, B minus potential, from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Tulane is reportedly a strong favorite on this guy, and as we said, Tulane is going hard after a number of receivers since they are losing their top receiver this year and then losing their next top 2 next year, all to the draft. That wide receiver room is going to be gutted soon, so they're working hard to try and rebuild that as quickly as possible so they can have a smooth transition. Last season they got quarterback Kohler Sanders, and if they don't work now on the recruiting trail, and they're gonna have to fight really hard next year to get some receivers. And if neither of that works, they will not have any targets for that bright young quarterback. So focus right now is getting some wide receivers, not just for now but for the future, for a young quarterback who's going to need some people to throw it to. Next up, we've got Pank Jack Gal. Weird name. I probably pronounced it wrong, so I'm sorry about that. A run blocking offensive tackle, 4-star, B overall, C potential, from Plainfield South, Illinois, This is actually one of the closer. This is one of the closer, battles that we have to report on, and this is something that right now is currently very equal. Notre Dame and Tulsa are fighting for this guy, and it is very close. This is a really big offensive tackle, 6'3", 305. This is a guy that can make a huge impact in the run game. Either team would be lucky to have him, and these are 2 teams that are going in on this guy because they know how valuable he is. Just again, really interesting recruiting battle. If there's one recruiting battle throughout all these people I'm talking about, this is the one you want to watch because this one is looking like it's going to start heating up in the coming weeks. Um, so best of luck to Tulsa. I'm hoping they can swing that from Notre Dame, but I guarantee you that will be an interesting battle and something to keep an eye on. Next up, we have fullback. We get some fullback love here with Scott Sharples, blocking fullback, 4-star, C overall, C potential from Richmond, Virginia, high school Henrico. ECU is the only person on him, and they're leading mostly because they're the only ones on him. But East Carolina strong favorites here. They can pull in a fullback. If they can get this guy, he might be one of the under the radar signings. If you can get a good blocking fullback, I mean, if you use him correctly, that can be almost like an extra offensive lineman, and that can be a huge protection for that team. So while it is not a flashy signing, it is definitely a big signing. If they can pull it, it will be a big signing for them. Next up, we have Ernest Williams, balanced offensive guard from Oak Ridge, Conroe, Texas. 4 stars, B overall, C plus potential. And again, I talked about that offensive tackle that Notre Dame and Tulsa are fighting on, and they're fighting on more. This one, Notre Dame and Tulsa are fighting on this guy too. Okay, Notre Dame has more of an edge on this one than they do on the other offensive linemen, but Notre Dame has strong favorites. Tulsa definitely not out of it. They're still 100% in contention. I mean, this is something that is, again, it's going to heat up. Two teams that are fighting to really like solidify and build that O line. I feel like both of those guys can go either way, so that'll be a fun one to watch. Um, Next up, we have Kevin Lusby, zone coverage cornerback out of Shallow Water, Texas. A lot of Texas guys that I'm looking at, but 4 stars, B overall, C plus potential. TCU is currently the strong favorite, but SMU is in contention. They're not out of it, and from reports, Tulsa reached out. It looks like they're not going to pursue him any harder, but this is a guy that he has a pretty good chance of coming. I mean, right now TCU is leading, but I think he might have a pretty good chance of coming home and landing in the AAC. This will be somebody who comes into the AAC, and I think will make a big impact and will be a big player for us for this conference. And our last guy that I have that I want to recruit this last recruit that I want to highlight is scrambling quarterback Stephen London, 4 stars, C overall, C plus potential. This is a guy that Texas was looking at. He's from Hunt. He goes to Hunt High School in Wilson, North Carolina. This is a guy Texas was looking at, but I think that they kind of conceded him to East Carolina University, who is currently the strong favorite. They're looking for that next quarterback, and I think they found their guy. Stephen London, while being a scrambler, he's got tremendous work ethic. And I mean, he wants to start immediately, and I think he can do that on East Carolina University. He's going to have to work a little bit for it, but I think that's an achievable goal. So I will look forward to that. I look forward to eventually, maybe, welcoming a new quarterback into the AAC. And it's always fun to get new guys, especially quarterbacks, because they can end up running the offense. It's always fun to watch them work. I want to apologize for that. There may be an aggressive there may be an aggressive cut. There, I had to step away for a second, so if there is a cut there, I apologize for that. But next up, we have to talk about Navy. So I did it last week, and I'm going to continue doing this. We're going to be talking about a team in the AAC that has been, not doing so well, and we're going to talk about things that we can do that this team can do to try and fix it. This week's edition is going to be on Navy, and next week we are going to talk about SMU. So unless things can always change. We'll see. But for now, next week's edition will be SMU. So let's start off. Let's start off where I think I have the most insight to share because I am much better at game planning for this side than the other. Let's start off with the offense. And, just going down the line, first we're going to talk about the wide receivers. Okay. These receivers for Navy are having some trouble catching the ball. I think one thing that they should do is should consider giving Tevin Griffin the third, Tevin Griffin the third. I think they should consider giving him some looks. He hasn't been targeted a single time this season, but he's got the best hands on the entire team, and I mean he's going to be overall. He's a little bit down on the depth chart, but I think they should look to move him up because this is a guy that he's got hands, and that's been the biggest problem. They just haven't been able to get their hands on the balls and complete catches. So I feel like he could be, a great asset. And then plus another plus is this guy's a sophomore. He's got a potential. Getting some more playing time will really help in his development. He can be the next big receiver for Navy. So I'm hoping that this is a guy that we see a little bit more of, and we see he's thriving because this is a guy who's going to be in the he's going to be in the AAC for another 2 years, and if he plays his cards right, he can be a dominant receiver for those next 2 years. So I'm rooting for him. I'm hoping that he can be one of the catalysts to turning this team around. Moving on, we're going to talk about Navy's running backs, and Donald Perkins is the current starter, and I think he should stay that way. This is a guy with beast strength, and they should really look to use him on inside runs. Um, Other than that, I don't have much to say. They have another running back, but he's more of an outside run guy because he's got better agility, which I don't. I mean, but he doesn't have the speed or any of the other abilities that Donald Perkins has. I think he just is, a step behind Donald Perkins. Donald Perkins is the clear starter. Moving on, we're going to go to quarterbacks, and uh, I'm going to talk about their starting quarterback, Benny Ramirez. I feel like he's the right choice. I mean, they've got a scrambling quarterback ahead of him, but I don't feel like a scrambling quarterback fits their offense right now, at least with what they're doing now. So I think Benny Ramirez should be the guy that stays there. But to going back to their quarterback situation. Well, sorry, I gotta pull it up. Uh, there. Okay, so going to their quarterback situation, Alberto Martin. Alberto Martin is their backup quarterback. He's a senior and he's a scrambling quarterback, and he's got some good abilities. This guy's an athlete. I thought maybe, you don't have to do it, but maybe you give this guy a look at running back. You see what he can do. There have been teams that have been playing their scrambling quarterbacks at running back, and it has been working out for them. So you never know. Maybe that's the change. Maybe that's a change that can be good for this team. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't see what he is at running back, but I mean that's just my opinion. I mean, give him a look. You don't have to play him for a game. I mean, there's no harm in it. Just maybe a couple of reps in practice. Okay. Um, Now we got to get on to the offensive line because I'm moving through this fast. But I feel like there's a couple different things we got to go to, and I feel like the main thing that I want to talk about is the defense. But I always got to start off with the offense. Next up, we have the offensive line. Okay, so looking across Navy's offensive line, they've got a lot of good run blockers, and only like two or three good guys that can like do good, like who can do okay in the pass block. Um, and I feel like maybe that they should play to that. They've got some offensive tackles who can run block, and they've got an offensive guard and a center who are not the best run blockers. And I think maybe there's no penalty now, but so maybe they move some like those two extra offensive tackles they have, the backups, who are good run blockers, over to guard and center. See what they can do there and kind of commit more towards the run. The passing game's being a little slow. They're having trouble. I feel like if they do this and they kind of work on this and they go all in on the running game, which their offensive line seems suited for, we might see them starting to get some results. It's worth a shot. You never know. Uh, Jojo Faulkner, Tristan Carl. Those are the two backup offensive tackles on the left and right side, respectively, if I remember correctly. I mean, you look at an offensive guard, Jeremiah Arnado. It's D run blocking. This guy cannot run block for his life. Um, so I mean, and then the center, similar thing. I think he's got C or D run blocking. I don't have it up right now, so it might be a good idea to look to go all in on the run blocking line and just kind of commit all in on the run. Um, you know, And then that kind of ends it for the offense. I believe that Navy should look to lean more into the run game than the passing game. Their quarterback has not been great to start the season. He can turn that around. I believe he can, but I mean, you got to play with you got to go with what's working, and nothing's really working now. But you can't make too many changes to help out the passing game. There's a couple changes you can make to help out the running game. So I feel like since you can change more things to help out the running game, that's the direction you should go. Now we move over to the defense, and this is the defense which, in terms of yards, is pretty good. They have the 17th least pass yards allowed, 14th least run yards allowed, and the 4th least yards allowed. The only problem is they've given up 58 points. I believe this is because their punter Ryan Wagner has absolutely no power behind his punt, and because of this, he's giving the opponent's offense very short field to work with. So while they're not picking up the yards that other teams are on offense, they're preventing them from getting yards, but they're still going down the field and they're still scoring because they just have less room to go. I could be wrong about this. I'm not entirely sure. I would have to look into it more, but that's my opinion right now. So now getting into the actual team. Now we're going to look at the safeties first, and the current starting free safety is Rokon Souza. Souza, I feel like, is the best safety on the team. And he's not been showing that. He's been a little rough. But just to switch the attention to the other side, a strong safety, they got this guy Polakno, who has been absolutely killing it. He is leading this defense. And when I look at them, I see Souza as a better version of Polakno. So I don't know what I'm not in there. I'm not in the game plan, but I think whatever they're doing with Polakno, they should try doing with Souza. Souza is a young guy. If I remember correctly, let me pull it. Sorry about that. So I was checking. Back to this. Uh, so Souza is a freshman. Okay, so this is a guy who's got a lot of time to grow. I think, he will end up being one of the best safeties in the AAC, maybe even the league. This is a guy who's a freshman. He's already looking great. He can already improve a lot. So looking forward to seeing this guy improve. But I feel like just if he's used in the same way that they're using Polakno, Souza can really thrive because Polakno is thriving and Souza's struggling. And again, they're very similar players. They play a very similar type of defense. Very similar stats. It's just Souza's better, in my opinion. So I think if they just were to look at using Souza the same way they're using Jeremy Polakno, we can see a lot of improvements from the Souza. This is a young guy who, if he starts to, again, this is a guy that we can dominate defenses across the AAC for years to come, and I look forward to seeing him work. Now we go and we take a look at the linebacking core. So, Navy's linebackers, let's start with the offensive linebackers. They have 3 good options to start. And, before we dive deep into it, Marcus Pena, he deserved one of the spots. He has elite coverage ability, and he's got the ability to succeed both within the pass rush and on run defense. He's a sophomore. The extra playing time will definitely help him develop. So, without a doubt, he is going to be one of those offensive linemen to start. Offensive linebackers. Outside linebackers that start. My bad. I'm tripping over my words. But, I feel like he's one of those outside linebackers who 100% should start. But then you look to who's going to be on that other side, and I feel like it's a real toss-up between Tyus Fournette and Steve Dixon. And I believe that Tyus Fournette deserves to be that starting outside linebacker. I can't really go too into why. It's just a gut feeling. I feel like Tyus Fournette just puts it all together better than Steve Dixon is. So then moving on to inside linebackers, they've got 2 good guys. They've got Prince Charles Matthews, and I believe he deserves to be that top guy at that position. And then going into the battle, they have two really good inside linebackers, and based on my evaluations, it's a very close battle between Prince Charles Matthews and Matt Poles. But I believe Prince Charles Matthews edges out Matt Poles in every category. It was very tough to make this decision because they're both very similar players with near identical skill sets, but in just every single category, Prince Charles Matthews just barely edges out um, Matt Pauls. I feel like they could work together and be a good inside linebacker duo. And I feel like running a 3-4 with them could be. I mean, it can be a really good play. I mean, they're again two great inside linebackers, and I will get to the defensive tackles later. But I feel like they can be a really good tandem. I feel like a 4-3 would really suit them. Or sorry, a 3-4 would really suit them. Um, Moving on, though, we get over to the defensive tackles and the defensive line. So we look over and looking at the defensive lines, we've got Kohler Sanders. Yeah, he's rated higher than uh while Kohler Sanders is rated higher. I feel like lower rated defensive tackle still be overall Jehu Andrisk. He has the better choice to start. His run defense is worse than Kohler Sanders, but his improved pass rush and his agility makes up for it in my eyes. I also feel that Jehu's pass rush ability works great with the rest of the team because he will be working alongside Correa and Huff, the top two defensive ends for Navy, who are both really good run defenders and not so much on the pass. So having a guy in the middle who can defend the pass while the guys on the outside will make up for his lack of run support, I feel like that would be a good pairing to make. Again, if Navy decides to run the 4-3 like they have been doing, they would both start. And then, in my opinion, Prince Charles Matthews would be the top linebacker. But that's up to Navy to decide. Moving forward, we just got to finish it up. We're gonna look at the cornerbacks. Tommy Montero, I mean, he's just a beast. That's the top cornerback. I mean, the top two cornerbacks for Navy are both A's. Tommy Montero is a beast, and these cornerbacks they look really impressive. But the only thing is they're split between zone and man coverage. Well, Montero has an A in man and B in zone, or A in zone and a B in man. I feel that running a man is a much better fit for the team, just because they have one more guy. Instead of three, they have four guys who are better at man than zone. So just do that. I feel like in the future, when they're looking to recruit new cornerbacks, they should really try and decide if they want to run man or if they want to run zone with their cornerbacks. Because having a split cornerback is not good, because then you're stuck between two systems, man and zone, and you can't do either one too effectively. And that's all I have for Navy. We're going to get into my final discussion, and this is going to be a look forward into next week. So, now, looking at next week, again, we've got our in-conference matchups. We only have one bye week, and that's UCF. So because of that, every single matchup this week will be in conference. First time that it's going to be the first time that every single matchup played in the AAC is an AAC in conference game. So let's go left to right on the schedule sheet I have. Cincinnati at Temple. That'll be a fun game. Cincinnati is going to be working really hard too. I feel like Cincinnati and Temple are both. I have them 3 and 4 on the rankings, so that's going to be a very fun game to watch. I mean, winner will probably leapfrog number 2 Tulane if they don't come away with a win. Even if they do, they might leapfrog Tulane. So it's going to be a fun game to watch. Next up, we have USF. We have SMU at USF. SMU, a tough loss against UCF, but a promising loss where they showed some promise that they haven't showed up to this point. They're going to be home to host USF, who just had a big win against Cincinnati. They're riding high, so I feel like going into predictions, I can't figure out the Cincinnati Temple game. Cincinnati's been falling too much, but going into predictions, I feel like USF comes away with the win for this game. I know they're going into SMU, and I know home field advantage has been pretty big so far, but I feel like USF, coming off of the big win against Cincinnati, riding that wave, will be able to come out and edge out SMU. USF's defense has really started putting it together. They've been good all season, and they really, were able to lock down a high offense explosive team last week. I see them doing it again. Next up, we have East Carolina at Houston, and this is another game that's going to be important to watch. Two teams that have been struggling. East Carolina's 2-2, and Houston's 1-3. But in my opinion, Houston comes away with the win here. And they're at home. I mean, sorry, East Carolina's at home, but Houston, they're going into East Carolina, which is going to be tough. Wait, hold on. Sorry, the USF game is in Florida. It's at USF's house. So SMU is going in there, so it just reinforces my idea. SMU going into South Florida, I feel like USF's going to get the win. Then East Carolina, it's going to be in East Carolina's hometown. It's in their stadium. They're going up against Houston, so Houston's going to go into East Carolina. They're going to look for a win. I feel like they can do it. They can overcome the big difference, the big effect that home field advantage has had. Houston, they're trying. They just have the one win, but that one win was again against number 6 TAMU. It was a huge win, and I feel like, I mean, they have the tools. They have the tools. They put it together once. I feel like they can put it together again. Next up, we have Tulane at Navy. Tulane is going to go to Ann Arbor, go up against Navy, in what will be a fun game. Navy's had trouble starting their offense, and maybe a home win against Tulane, they might be able to get a home win against Tulane, who has been struggling recently. They've been dominant their first 2 games, but these last 2 games, they've cracks have begun to form, and maybe Navy can take advantage of that at home against a Tulane team that's feeling the effects of getting their first loss. With that being said, I think Tulane will be able to go into Navy's house and get the win. I feel like there's going to be a lot of fight in that team as they try and bounce back from that. I mean, they're still in the running for to win the AAC, and I feel like that's going to really motivate them to do it. Next, and the last game of the season, last game of the week, we have Tulsa at Memphis. Okay, 2 teams who are looking for their first win. So one team, Tulsa or Memphis, is going to come out of Memphis with a win. And Memphis has shown some flashes. They had a really nice game against Tulane. They had the bye week last week. And I think, although Tulsa has better talent, I think Memphis will be able to edge out a win here, based purely off of their last result, where they were able to they lost, but it was a very tough, very close result against Tulane that came down to a late touchdown winning drive where Tulane scored in the last 5 minutes. I feel like Memphis is, riding high. Even though they have a loss, they have some momentum off of, getting close to beating a top team in the AAC. I think they will be able to carry that into next week when they go up against Tulsa. That's all I have. So I will see you guys next week for next week's edition of AAC, where I will recap the games. We have a lot of games, and I will recap everything again. So yeah.